station. I believe it was called Union Station, but I don't think it was an Indy. Workers on the railroad, these guys would be called the chain gang. You can see the striped uniforms. They are prisoners, and they do have one thing in common. They are all African American. This was the highest ranking African American in the Civil War, Anderson Ruffin Abbott, and he was also Canada's first black doctor. Silver and Gold. Awesome Christmas song. Approximate tribal locations prior to whites coming to America. And then, of course, after.
This is the Sharps rifle that we know from the factory records was shipped to South Texas to an outpost called Fort Griffin there on the plains. This 50 caliber rifle was one of the guns that laid low thousands of buffalo in the 1870s. The 30-inch octagonal barrel on this Sharps 5090 was capable of launching half-inch thick projectiles backed by 90 grains of black powder. A lethal combination capable of harvesting buffalo at 400, 500, 600 yards. And in those days, shooting a stand was the type of hunting. Hunters would surround the herd. They'd fire 60, 70, 80, perhaps 90 times until they had a like number of buffalo stretched out on the grass. It was a time when America was moving west. It was a time when the West was being made safe for guns like Winchesters by guns like the Sharps. History is in the National Firearms Museum galleries. This is one of the guns at home make.
Of course, killing the buffalo really was to force the Indians onto the reservation. Without a food source, they had nothing to eat, and they pretty much had to go where the government said. As if the treaties weren't bad enough that America lied to the Indians about, then they also had to deal with Indian agents who were corrupt, selling them horse meat or rotted meat, meat that had expired, taking their money for it, but selling them low quality stuff.
That famous day in history, the men of the 7th Cavalry went fighting on. And from the rear a voice was heard, a brave young man with a trembling word rang loud and clear.
What am I doing here? Please, Mr. Custer, I don't want to go. Hey, Mr. Custer, please don't make me go. I had a dream last night about the coming fight. Somebody yelled attack, and there I stood with the arrow in my back.
That's good enough. If you want to listen to it, it's online. YouTube. The Dawes General Allotment Act granted each Indian family 160 acres in 1887. That is irregardless of how big the family was. There could be 10 kids, they get 160 acres. There could be 2 kids, they get 160 acres. The land could not be sold, ideally, could not be sold for 25 years. And this replaced the reservation system. But what actually happens, as you can see in this newspaper article, Indian land for sale, get a home of your own, easy payments, perfect title, fine lands in the West. So by 1910, they were already selling off Indian lands. And then, of course, to this one, land transfer from Native Americans to whites. The top picture is 1775. You can see the Indian land there in the dark. And then in 1894, 120 years later, how much land they have.